Hello everybody and welcome to the August webinar, and I am Gary Johnson, as you know, coming to you from the Wild Institute, and this month we're talking about follow-up, what follow-up should look like and the type of follow-up that will get you to stand apart in your practice. I'm going to promise you this is one of the most powerful tools in your toolbox should you use it properly. So we're going to be kind of getting into that and what that looks like. A couple things I want to touch base on as we go. I'm going to switch slides here. First of all, based on my interactions, interviewing, discussions with some of the top practices in the country, and I'm going to tell you that this is at least 70 practices I've spoken with, you're just not following up enough. Just not doing it. We're going to talk about that. Follow-up that we are doing is not creating a sense of urgency, so we're going to cover that. How we can get the doctor involved, especially using a tool like BombBomb, which we discussed before, and then using a system. And what kind of a system should you be using? I will tell you that my experience is most of you are not using a formal system, and I'm going to recommend that you do. And then lastly, tracking your numbers very closely. Really, really important that we do that. So let's first start with this. And I really want you to hear me on this. This isn't meant to be a criticism. It's just a fact. My research tells me we are just not following up enough. We're not doing it consistently. We're taking too long to do it. We're not using the feedback that we get from that follow-up to shape future suggestions or ways or strategies of handling follow-up. So I want to talk about that with you. So here's my point. I've spoken with, as I mentioned earlier, at least 70 practices, and these are top practices throughout the country. And what I have found is that consistently our treatment coordinators are not following up regularly or consistently enough. TCs, in addition to that, aren't using a systematic approach. They're shotgunning it. They have a scratch pad. They have a spreadsheet. They send a letter when they get to it. All those things that quite honestly just are not powerful ways to really make sure that follow-up is effective. And in many cases, the follow-up that we are doing is not done timely enough. So I get asked this question quite a bit: how quickly should we be following up? My recommendation here is less than a week is really what you need to be looking at. And some of you in the audience might be saying, well, gosh, Gary, that sounds too quick. Well, there's a significant drop-off in those that will say yes to us the longer we wait. So we want to get back there, or get back to them and have them get back to us quickly, and it's a week or less. So I'm gonna walk you through that. So that's what I say here. I think it's a week or less. I think you need a reason to follow up. I think it's really important. What do I mean by a reason? I think we need to give them something that we have asked them to either check on or that we said we'd check on so that we can get back to them. And I'm going to give you some examples of that as we go. I think you need to quit sending boring follow-up letters. I've seen too many practices that are sending a cookie-cutter letter that's going out to the patient that says, thank you for coming in to our initial exam and blah, 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 boring. And it's just an old school way of following up, and I think there's better ways to get in front of that potential parent or potential patient than a standard follow-up letter. And it just takes too long. Snail mail is just not fast enough. We need to come up with some quicker ways. I think first thing you need to do is you need to determine what is that patient's ideal method of communication, what they prefer, not what we prefer. When we send out boring letters, that's what we prefer, but not necessarily our patient. We need to find out what they like. Do they like texting? Are they emailers? Do they prefer snail mail as we might traditionally send it? Would they prefer a follow-up phone call? Would they prefer a video? And we're going to talk about that later, a BombBomb type video. What's their preferred method of follow-up? We need to find that out. And I'm going to promise you, you're not doing this consistently. And I bet you if I called you and said, what's your patient's ideal method of communication, you wouldn't know the answer. We're just doing it the way we've always done it, and we need to get better at that. So just think about that first and foremost. I think it's a critical point. Follow up quicker. I say a week or less. Give me a reason to follow up. I'm following up, and you're going to see this later, because you said you were going to check with a significant other, or they wanted to analyze their insurance, or they wanted to see what the vet said, or they want to find out what the grocer thinks, or they want to pet their dog 3 times and see if they can, through telepathy, decide if the dog thinks they, whatever the reason. You got to have a reason to follow back up with them. And I'm going to suggest to you that creating a sense of urgency as we get deeper into this presentation will help you with that. But you have to have a reason, and I think it's less than a week, preferably. I think it's 72 hours. I think within 3 days you're following up just to see what other questions they might have and what other things that you might be able to answer. Really, really important. I know a lot of you in the audience are saying, oh my gosh, 3 days. I promise you, your numbers will go up if you do that. This is a way to get that 72-hour window or less than a week to work for you. Create a sense of urgency. Creating a sense of urgency means giving them a reason to get back to you. This could be, and as you saw, that what Lynn said about scheduling a tentative appointment, that's kind of an assumptive close, if you will, but why don't we go ahead and schedule this? So they have a reason to call you back. They have a reason to call back and either cancel it. What I like to do with those appointments, I like to say, hey, let's go ahead and put this down. If something changes, let me know. But otherwise, I'm planning on seeing you on the 10th. That puts the ball back in their court. I still would follow up at that point, but I would follow up differently. But that's one way to create a sense of urgency, schedule the tentative appointment. Give them an option to upgrade, if they get back to you in the few days. So whether you're make sure your doctor's okay with this, but clear brackets, for example, don't have a whole lot of cost to us difference-wise in the total cost of a case versus metal brackets. So maybe you say, hey, look, if you can get back to me with an answer, it just helps us with our scheduling in the next, say, 3 days. If you guys decide to move forward, we will go ahead and we will give you an upgrade to our clear brackets should you decide you want to do that. Or give them some other reason. One of the things my wife suggested, I thought it was a good one, a lot of you out in the audience give incentive points to your patients based on good hygiene or being on time for their appointments or whatever. Just tell them, hey, listen, if you can get back to us in the next 3 days, we're going to load an equivalent of X number of points onto Susie's card. So she's going to be able to come right out of the gate with X number of points so she can get a prize that she would really like. Again, that puts the pressure back on the parent to give us an answer. But creating a sense of urgency is really, really important. And I think it's something that we're not doing enough of. So think about that. One of the things I've talked about in the past, and I feel really, really strongly about, is videos to describe to a significant other that wasn't there what happened in an appointment. So typically what we're finding in initial exams is we're getting, usually mom, that will bring Susie in for the initial exam. We'll be wowed. We'll get a chance to go through the whole process, but we don't tend to have dad there. I'm not saying that's always the case. I'm just saying that happens a lot. My recommendation would obviously first be try to get both parents there if you can and give them a reason to do that. But if you can't get both parents there, one of the things I've suggested in the past is using a flip video camera or an iPhone or a Droid or an iPad to have the doctor take all of those patients that left your office and said, I want to think about it, I want to check with the grocer, I want to see what my dog thinks, whatever, I want to go home and talk to my significant other. Let's videotape any of those patients that leave, any and all of those patients that leave without a yes, and send them a 5 to 7 minute video with the doctor looking straight into the camera, explaining what he saw in today's initial exam. Is this going to take a little bit more time and a little bit more effort for the practice? Yes, it is. Here's the question. If every single day, let's just use this math, if every single day you had 2 patients that left and said, I want to think about it, and you said to the doctor that it would take a total of 15 extra minutes a day at the end of the day, filming 2 7-minute videos for each of those patients. If you said you did that 2 times a day for 4 days a week, 8 times, and a third of those people would sign up and schedule with you that wouldn't have before, your doctor's going to say, where do I sign? It's a no-brainer. I mean, do the math on that. And you say, Gary, well, I don't have that many that would say, I want to think about it. Okay, well, let's say you had 2 a week. If you had 2 a week, and that's 8 in a month, and you could get a third of those people to say yes because of this wow follow-up, That's an additional, say, 2 point whatever starts, 2.5 starts, whatever. So let's just round down to 2 for easy math. That's 24 starts a year. That's $120,000 of additional starts. Is it worth that extra 15 minutes a week? I think the answer to that's very clearly yes. And that's the way you have to look at this. It is going to be a little extra work, but with the advent of technology today, it's so simple to send these emails out with this video. And in fact, this BombBomb video email system I recommended to you, and hopefully you took advantage of, is a real simple way to do this. The software is already set up. The doctor just needs the file in front of him or her and look into the camera and say, "Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. This is Dr. Bankhead. I'm just calling or emailing you to thank you for bringing Susie out to our practice. We found Susie has what's called a class 2 malocclusion, and what that means is blah, blah, blah." And it's a 5 to 7 minute overview of that appointment for that day and why doctor is recommending treatment. Please hear me. If you do this, it has huge results. Is it more work? Yes, it is. If you get paid a bonus or you get paid based on how well you do for the practice in terms of starts, and you could increase your starts by $120,000 a year, would you do it if it only took you invested an extra, say, hour a week in time? I think the answer is a resounding yes. So think about that. One of the things that we can do, as I've mentioned, is use this BombBomb video. The video system, hopefully it's BombBomb, just like it sounds as you see in the PowerPoint, is a fantastic tool. It's I want to say it's $25 to $30 a month. You can send out a ton of these video emails, not just to your follow-ups as we're talking about in this video, but for many other things. It's a great, great tool. What I love about it is it will show you when they opened it and will also show you if they viewed it. So that will really help you in your follow-up. So if I send this video out, and I strongly recommend that it's the doctor, and in there we're talking about the what and the why of the recommendation. If that's not possible, don't let that keep you from doing this, then you do it. The treatment coordinators is second fiddle to the doctor in terms of effectiveness in this tool, but it's better than not doing it at all. So if the doctor can't do it, you do it, and you talk about what the doctor recommended in terms of treatment. What's great about this for a follow-up tool is you can tell your parent when they leave, hey, I'm going to film one of these videos, and once I film this video, I'm going to send it to you via email, and then you will be able to watch this with your significant other and go over it in detail, and then if there's any questions, be able to answer that. So then once they open the video and then they view it, you know they've looked at it. You can then go back and call, say, a day later and say, hey, what questions do you have about the video, that kind of thing. Very, very powerful tool in terms of your follow-up. Really important to do that. Here's another point. I think it's an important one. You've got to use a system for your follow-up. I've noticed through observation and conversation that many of you out there in the audience are not doing that, and it's really important that you use a system. My research says you're using an antiquated system or no system at all. You cannot be consistent if your system is not. Use a CRM system like Insightly. It's free. You can get it on your Android or on your app store for your phone. It's free, I want to say, for the first 500 customers. Whether it's that, whether you're a spreadsheet person, which I don't think is a real good way to do this. I'd much rather see you use one of these online contact management systems like Insightly that are free. You need a system to diligently follow up with people. If they leave you and they don't say yes, they need to go into your system. You need to put an alarm on there to follow up. You need to use things like the BombBomb video that I recommended. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to take you to the next level. This is what the best organizations on the planet are doing. But if you don't have a system, I'm going to promise you, you won't be diligent in following through on this. You've got to use a system like this CRM system I recommended to make sure that you are staying on top of this. Really, really important. Lastly on this, and I know this is maybe a little bit shorter video than we normally go through, but that doesn't mean that it's not content rich. This is a critical element of your success. You've got to be tracking your numbers closely. And I'm going to tell you, most of you in the audience are not tracking these numbers as closely as you should. And I think it's really, really important that you do that. So when somebody leaves your office, you should be able to say to your doctor, "Doctor, we had 31 starts last month. We had 15 that went into observation, and 17 or whatever the number is that were no starts. And of those 17, as you guys go through this number, 12 went to a competitor and 5 have done nothing, whatever. Those are numbers we should be tracking regularly. But in addition to that, you should be able to say, of the 31 starts we had this month, 4 of those starts came from follow-ups on initial exams that occurred in August, or this is August, in July, between July 17th and July 21st. And whatever. That's the kind of stuff you need to be tracking very, very closely. If you're not doing that, there's no possible way you can modify behavior. I was taught in graduate school that you cannot manage what you cannot measure. If you don't track your numbers well, you are guessing and you're missing opportunities. So that being said, obviously you guys are tracking things like number of starts and observations and those kind of things. What we need to be tracking are those people that left and said, I want to think about it. And then when of that group, how many became patients and in what time frame they became a patient and what method of follow-up you used, etc. These are the things that are going to help you. If you can manage these, measure these things, you can manage them. If not, you're guessing. And I'm going to promise you, based on my experience with most of your offices out there, you're not consistently tracking this particular number. Again, I mentioned if you don't track it, you're going to be missing opportunities. This is a critical number for you to track. Number of patients that say yes, I like that to be within a 30-day window personally. You could track it 30 and then 60 and then a number that ever say yes. So you could have, okay, initial exams. There were 100 initial exams in 2015. And of those 100 initial exams, these would be initial exams that left and wanted to think about it. Of those, 17 started 30 days later. 13 started 60 days later. 7 started sometime within that next year, and the rest, here's what happened with them. You need to know what's going on with these people. Some of those will have gone to a competitor, unfortunately. Some will have gone and done nothing. Others will, start with you, as we mentioned, but you need to track these numbers. Please track these. It's your responsibility as a professional treatment coordinator to do this well so that you can modify your behavior. And also, I think there's 1 to 2 starts a month just in this process of following up and following through really, really well. I think you're going to find that to be the case. So that being said, just recapping, we want to make sure that we're using creative tools like BombBomb to follow up, that we are using a software system like Insightly to track this data, that we are getting away from traditional letters, that we're figuring out what's the best method of communication that patient wants, and that we're using a system to diligently follow up and we're tracking our numbers. Yes, this is a shorter webinar this particular month, but probably one of the most important things that you can do in your job. The numbers are staggering. The percentage of treatment coordinators that don't follow up within a 2-week period of time. I'm going to tell you that number, believe it or not, it's probably close to 30%. It's a huge number. So we want to make sure we're doing that. I think there's 1 to 2 starts a month as a result. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you next month. I hope you're having a great year. I hope your numbers are where you need them to be. And as Zig Ziglar said, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next month.